Friends, I have had the sincere pleasure this week of sitting down with Carly Brinkman. Carly is a writer, a speaker, and a coach from the UK. And Carly and I sit down and we get real, we get raw, and we really talk about what it means to truly dive in deep. What does it mean to follow our truth? What is integrity? What are our standards? Where have we maybe fallen short of following those standards or having those boundaries? I truly believe that everybody deserves to have a Carly in their life. She is hilarious. She is witty. She's super, super fun. And she's also very, very wise. And so I'm really excited for you to tap into our next conversation. Let me know if something hits you like it hit me. Would love to hear your comments and feedback, and enjoy. Hey everyone, welcome to Lucy Smiles Living Room Podcast. I am so excited to introduce you to my guest today, Miss Carly Brinkman from the UK. How are you?
I am amazing. We have sunshine in the UK today, so it's very exciting.
The things that make us excited.
Simple things, simple pleasures.
I am so excited. It's so funny as I'm sitting here, and we've only known each other for a little short while, but I have to tell you before I even talk about your bio. So we met, obviously, you know where we met. We met at a beautiful spiritual event in LA not too long ago. And as I was sitting in the audience and you went up on stage, as soon as you started to chat, my husband, Anthony, says to me, she is going to be one of your new friends. Oh my gosh, you guys are going to have to be friends. And I thought, oh my goodness. So now we're here, and it's so interesting. Even just having a brief conversation with you last week, which we could have just recorded as a podcast episode.
Easy.
I just want to say thank you for your beautiful energy in my life. It's been so amazing. I feel that we are like sisters from a different life, and that's a whole other podcast. But before we get started chatting, I just want to introduce you. So Carly is a fellow writer, speaker, and coach who loves delving into big things. I love the fact that you are a recovering artist, so we're going to have to definitely talk about that. And I think the most important thing is that you allow the magic to show itself to you on a daily basis. And that is something that I live and breathe. And, when we say things like that, it's not that we don't have challenges in our lives, and it's not that we don't go through big things and all of those amazing things that come with being human. But I think that we still have that opportunity to find the magic no matter what, right? No matter what we're going through. So I just want to say thank you for coming on. I love chatting with you. When I first met you and I heard you speak on stage when you were asked to come up on stage, and I just saw this big vision that you had, right? And I just thought, wow, it's like how important it is for us to, no matter what, have a big vision. So you have a lot of amazing things going on. Your story is epic. So where would you like to start? Just in terms of, maybe we could even go back to where we were. So the spiritual growth that we are both evolving into, and what does that look like for you? And before you even start, one thing that came to me before starting this podcast was the courage to be brave. And I feel like that is something that radiates through you. So if you wanted to maybe touch on that as a great intro.
Yeah, sure. It's really difficult, isn't it, when you start these conversations? Because there's so much that you could start with right at the beginning. And even like discussing this coming on a podcast, I didn't do any preparation. I don't mean that I didn't do any preparation, but I have such faith now that when I'm in a moment with someone, whatever needs to come through will come through. And what the most important thing or message that needs to come out in the moment will come out in the moment. And the big thing for me at the moment is complete trust and faith. And for me, in all the journeys and all those situations and challenges and everything that's occurring in my life from an exterior perspective, I keep on getting called to go in. And a big thing that came up today, I was just down the beach. We actually have got summer for one day in the UK. It's just listening to the waves and allowing everything that needs to come up come up, and everything that needs to go. And from practical terms, that means that is always about my response to something. Now, a big thing is there's always going to be challenges. And the faith is when nothing changes in the outside, because I love manifesting. We spoke about it. And manifesting is really important because we get kind of little nod, well done, you're in alignment, here it is. However, I'm getting goosebumps while I'm saying this. Can we continually learn that things may not change? And when we're in the process, still do the inner work that we can feel the change. So just say you have a difficult situation with somebody or a relationship. Can you show up as a new version of you in that moment, even though the person hasn't changed? Now, that for me is manifestation at its absolute, the best thing it could ever be. And that's what I'm feeling at the moment, that it's my response to situations, even though I manifest quickly and I can show you, I've got long lists of everything, I think I mentioned it before. That's it. Those moments where it all comes up. Can you act in a different way than you did before, but give yourself compassion for the way that you acted before? And that's what's just come up.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you, you were telepathically reading my mind this morning at 5:30. I wrote in my journal, I'm telling you, this is so crazy. And this is why, I mean, we can go so many places. We have an hour to go and we're going to do some astral travel on our podcast today. But I literally wrote in my journal this morning. First of all, I realized that I don't journal enough. And I found an old journal that I had brought with me to Canada. It was when my mom passed away, and I bought this beautiful journal, and it said, I can't remember the cover of the journal, and I was like, oh my God, it talked about flowers and like how you're able to see the flowers when you believe. So I opened my journal this morning and I started journaling, and I hadn't journaled in this journal since last July 13th. I checked the date of the day before, and now it's the 19th. But what I wrote in my journal is, am I able to see all things differently if nothing changes?
Are you kidding me?
I swear this morning, because of certain things that are, again, we're always going through something. And I literally, I will take a screenshot for you. And I wrote, am I able to be a different person and see things differently if nothing else outside of me actually changes?
Oh
That's
my God, I've got goosebumps.
I know. And the thing is I wasn't going to journal because I'm getting ready for this podcast. And I was looking at the time. I'm like, oh, it's 6:22 and we have a 7 a.m. And I thought, I need to gift myself 7 minutes or 8 minutes to journal. So I went, I got my coffee and I sat and I thought, wow, even the act of journaling, before I even put pen to paper, I was like, I already feel like a different human.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's so important for us to realize too, is like, again, when we're on this like spiritual path, we never really get there. And I always say to people, we're never really going to get there or we wouldn't be here. As soon as you're there, you're no longer here because we're human and we're in the 3D. And that's one of the things I loved about our last conversation is how we talked about just being in certain things. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many courses and workshops and people that we are following and learning from, because we, learning and growing we love doing that. But it doesn't exempt us from being in things and going through things. So I would love if you could touch on that, maybe an experience you had, how you were able to help yourself go through human challenges by reminding yourself the magic, right? And that's something that we touched on.
Yeah, no, thank you. And that's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's a reminder that we're all interlinked as well. And the trust of our intuition and that inner wisdom that we had. I had no idea what I was going to say in that moment. And I think that's a key for lots of people, that inner trust that we keep on cultivating within ourselves, that actually we do have the wisdom. Our body's telling us all the time, and where our intuition goes will show. So for me, I started this journey about 7 years ago and quickly opened up and received a lot from the universe. And it was magical, overwhelming, incredible. I'd think something, it would appear. I would think of a word, then a song lyric. Souls were coming to me to be experienced and shared with other people. I was feeling other people's challenges. However, in the day-to-day humanness, I was so miserable and bereft because I had this experience, this incredible experience of accessing all this information around me, but my humanness was not grounded in a sense of finding joy of being a human. So it's been an incredible journey. And for me, that I've learned along the way that actually I have the power and I can manifest and create. But the magic I've discovered, especially in the journey I've been on of late, where a lot of exterior support or security has been taken away, that I'm learning and trusting myself a lot more in being a human. Because I do find sometimes when you elevate at such a level and such a speed, it's a little bit safer and nicer up there, quite frankly, when
It's
you're conversing with angels and spirit guides and we're manifesting. It's beautiful. However, I've chosen to incarnate in this moment, in this meaty flesh suit at this point of time.
yeah.
So with that is a humility that I always get moments that when you do have those profound experiences and you can feel it in every cell of your body. However, I feel the real work and the real beauty is incorporating all that we are learning and we have experienced in the daily humanness. And
Yeah.
that is what I'm constantly being reminded of. Yes. And it's having compassion to other people that are not necessarily have access to this information or on this journey, that they're just experiencing it. It doesn't mean, because I do think we do this sometimes, high vibrations, low vibrations. And then because we're doing the work and really want to move in this particular way, now I just see that they are on their own separate journey. Mine's not better or worse. That's the ego talking, where I used to feel it's not better and worse. And I'm reminding of the magic that they're getting. And again, going back to what you said, is just showing up. They're never going to change. No one ever changed it. Oh, will, can I be that spirituality and everything I believe that is spirituality when I have access to it in the moment when other people aren't? So the magic really is allowing space for all of it, allowing space. And we spoke about this, right? That all of the emotions are welcome to the table. Can we make space for that? And I'm just constantly reminded of that in every moment of the day, because I still have the humanness that comes up. I had it this morning. I had it last night. What am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. And then I kind of get back and try and reframe and come back to center. But that's the deliciousness of it all, really.
It is. And it's so funny that you say that. There's two things that came up for me. One of the things was empathy and compassion. And so it's exactly what you said. There's no, we're not any further along than other people, and other people are not any further along than we are. Right. So you and I had this conversation that was really interesting that I do want to touch on around like gurus, right? Like us being our own. And I know there's like that Tony Robbins, documentary from many years back called I'm Not Your Guru. And I know that we have had some conversations around, the importance of, we have people that we follow. So we met in LA. We went to a beautiful spiritual, event that was amazing. Some of the just really great thought leaders in our time teaching us and like learning from them, and then coming back and realizing that is already inside of us as well too. And that is also not trying to look at the exterior to get validated. Right. And so there was that we had touched on. And then the other thing too, that I wanted to chat about is like what you said, that we're all connected. So if I were to look at someone and say, well, they're not as far as I am, or like, I'm not as far along as they are, we're all on our own sacred contract. So really being able to have an understanding that we are all on our own path, and we're not trying to like pull people with us or push people away that are not, doing what we're doing. And it really came to me around the crystallization of the butterfly. So I know about the story of the crystallization of the butterfly, but I never realized that there was actually scientific studies until my friend Wendy, just a couple of days ago, said, have you ever heard of like the scientific studies on it? I said, no. Well, I know that if you have a cocoon of a caterpillar that's moving into a butterfly, that if you try to help it get there, it will die. It has to go through the crystallization on its own. And so literally I've known that story for a couple of decades. And then Wendy had said to me a couple of days ago, we were catching up, and she said there had been scientific studies of trying to help that crystallization, to help to support it in its growth to a butterfly. And that there was actual science that to back up the fact that we cannot help people grow on their way. And I look at myself too. I'm 47. I've been doing this kind of like, I've been curious about spirituality, I would say, because I'm not, we're all curious and on our own path for about 20 years now. So I've been writing and channeled as a writer as Lucy Smiles for 18 years now. And that's where my podcast is now being birthed. But for me, I look back and I'm like, I was that person that other people could have said, she doesn't get it yet. she's not there yet, because we're not all going to be there at the same time. That's what makes us all so multifaceted. But also, like you said, we're all connected. And so how can we have compassion and understanding that we're all connected and we're all in our own meat suit, as you said, which is one of my favorite things to say. So can you touch on, I would love to hear your thoughts. I know we touched on it briefly around, what it feels like to have the courage to be brave, to have the courage to be maybe even like disliked or not understood while you're on your path, and talk more about also who you surround yourself with and how does that feel for you to sometimes feel alone in this, and do you?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always felt, so it's been a really interesting journey in regards to one of my biggest wounds is being liked. It's a big one for me. Wow. So that was really interesting because obviously the path I've taken is to my family, wonderful, great training ground, fabulous people. It's something they don't understand. And when I first started in the journey, I was so desperate to be liked and understood. And that was a core wound, a massive one of my fragile ego. And the ego gets a bad time. I just see the ego as a little child, honestly, that just all those parts, it's trying to protect us, but all the parts that it didn't get love for at the time, it kind of comes up in a way that's really inconvenient. So that comes up. So my big wound was being liked. And then gradually, as I started to choose to participate in life in this way and align myself with these views and ideologies and rediscover myself, it doesn't make sense because we live in a kind of an egocentric world. And I surrounded myself, I pursued teaching, so became a primary school teacher and pursued exterior success to confirm that I was valued and liked. And then it started to crumble, and it's incredibly isolating and lonely. And then once you start to reach out, it's going to be wobbly at the beginning. And then when you fully commit to it, it's incredible when you fully commit to it. This is who I am. Now, what's helped me along the way, I've been incredibly fortunate that I have joined groups. So I think support is incredibly important from the right people. I think I said it to you before that I do believe, like deep within myself, that life is meant to be challenging, but with the right people, it's easy. So if you're having, and I think it with kids as well, like being a teacher, when I've seen kids, I was just down the beach today and there's a girl who was autistic, and the tone that she was receiving from her parents in that moment was scorn and frustration. And they don't understand her because her brain operates in a completely different way. So when she's really expressing herself at a natural point, it probably is a bit annoying, quite frankly, when you're on the beach and she's whinging about sand in her shorts. But the tone she's receiving from the few people that are supposed to love her unconditionally is annoyance, frustration, and scorn. And I say that because for me, it's really important for me to first create that compassion and love for myself. So the loneliness was just getting everybody out the way, because unless I love myself deeply, and I know it gets thrown around a lot, but again, that came to me today, that I can't welcome in a partner to love me unless when he is not there, I still think I'm amazing. I was looking in the mirror today saying, oh my God, you're so beautiful. Whether someone else thinks that or not, I am. That's not up for negotiation. So I have to think that, because if I get a mate coming in who I need to affirm that to me, when he's gone, it's not going to be there. Yeah. So for me, all of the challenges and everything that's occurred, the loneliness, the fear, the overwhelm, the poverty, I say losing my savings being redistributed somewhere else, that all of those parts are just welcoming something new, and you have to go through it. But I really, really do feel we are very abundant with what we can get online, having these conversations, we can access it. And now that I am going to be a better teacher and a better support to anybody that goes through this, because I've been it, I have that empathy, I have that understanding, I have that feeling. So I'm not going to judge that person. So for all of the adversity which I've experienced in life, it's didn't enjoy it at the time, quite frankly. But now I have the opportunity to support other people. So yes, I felt all of those things, and I still have glimmers of those that do arise. But then I can come back because I know that everything is here to help me. It was very challenging at the time, but I'm got 100% success rate of being alive. So I'm still here.
You're amazing. And it's as you're sharing that story, it reminds me, and I've said this on a couple of my episodes because it's just I have on my screensaver on my phone, what if it all works out? And every time
Yes.
and I'm on my phone often. And
Yes.
so I see that all the time and I love looking at it because every single thing up to this specific point right now has always worked out for me.
Yeah.
Has it been interesting? Has it been entertaining? Has it been, super scary? Absolutely. But it has honestly made me the person that I am because of what I've experienced. And one
Mhm.
of the things that I think the most important when we talk about, oh, you're on a spiritual journey or you're on that path, I think that the path is really just how self-aware can we be?
Mhm.
How can we be self-aware? And it is not about, once you're self-aware, everything is just, easy breezy, as you know.
Yeah.
Um, when I started becoming a writer, I started to, want to inspire people on how to look at life through blessings rather than burdens. And
Beautiful.
then I'll say it, like, then the shit started to hit the fan
Of
in my life.
course.
So I was like, "Oh, wait, I thought if I was like a spiritual writer, then I can just be like magically on my broomstick and just write about all the fairy dust." I'm like, "No, with the fairy dust comes XYZ." And I thought, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy."
Yeah.
However, it allowed me to be so relatable. So
Mhm.
I would write something called My Lucy's Weekly Smile, and then I would get a phone call from my girlfriend, Cassandra. She's like, "Girl, do you need money? I just read your smile. Are you good?" I'm like,
Yeah.
so because I would write about my truth and I
Yeah.
would write about what I'm actually going through
Yeah.
because the one thing I would have to say, even chatting with you, is that once we feel, "Oh my gosh, I'm not alone. She went
Exactly.
through," then it's like, wow, now I can kinda get through things even better because we're meant to not be alone, right? We're not supposed to be on an island by ourselves, and if we can use our experience to say, "Hey, I know what you're going through. I've been there," in a different way,
Mhm.
not to take from but to say, as with you as a coach, and I would like for you to talk about that, how are you able to then use what you've been through to support people not from a pedestal,
Mhm.
right? But from being
Mhm.
on that same relatable path?
Do you know what's really beautiful once you go through this process of really facing your own ego and realizing it's a little kid that just needs love? When I
Mm,
hold sessions now, which is really beautiful, and again, I say this because I've gone through it as in that I desperately needed people to love me. And now that I've gone that and become more and more that person for myself, when I hold sessions now, the most beautiful thing that occurs is I come with absolutely nothing. And this is really interesting for me to really understand that concept because I studied journalism. My mum's an academic. My sister, my older sister's from clinical psychologist. So a lot of it is related to structure, ideas that have been passed through, something to refer to. So to
wow.
completely abandon everything you know, even though it's coming through you, was a really interesting concept for me. So when I hold sessions now, I tap into people's energy with permission and consent, and I feel them. And when I go into the session, I have nothing but unconditional love. I don't really know what's going to come through, but I do, because when I am working with that vibration of love and understanding with nothing else, I know whatever I'm offering that person in the moment is the highest thing they need to receive at the moment. And now that I'm not attached, whether they think I'm good, whether they think I'm a good coach, whether I'm getting them somewhere, whether they're going to tell everyone how amazing I am. I come with the energy knowing this is going to be exactly what you need. Like I'm getting like goosebumps now, and it's
Yeah.
29 degrees outside. So I know that now. And it's the same with the journey writing my book. I started a book. I thought it was incredible. I was like, hey guys, and it was incredible. And then I wrote it, and my editor said, Carly, I've got to be honest with you, those are your books. And then when he read one chapter, he cried. And I realized I had to abandon everything that I first thought was amazing and then just go with that. And now writing the book, it's flowing. So it's a really understanding and properly surrendering to the concept that we don't know. And if we really do work for and with whatever you call it around you, it
Mhm.
it's the most beautiful thing. So working with people, I get myself out the way
Mhm.
and know that it's for them and for the highest good for them, the planet. And it's a really challenging thing. And I only have got to that place because I didn't used to be like that. And that's what we need to show people is that
Yeah.
I am human. I still struggle with things on occasions. I still find it challenging, but I now have got to the point I can really be there for people because I've accepted that part of myself.
I love that. So can you share what you're coaching? I don't wanna say, like, But what is it that you're like, how are you coaching?
Yeah,
What does it look like for those who are saying, "Oh my gosh, I love her energy. I want to potentially even work with you." What does
yeah,
that coaching look like for you? How did it start? And
yeah.
what is the biggest experience that you feel that allows you to just keep shining in that
Yeah.
modality?
So basically I work with a modality that deals with muscle testing. And
Wow.
the idea is for someone to bypass their cognitive brain, which they think is the right answer or the problem, and go straight to the subconscious, because the subconscious really is driving most of our choices. And we think we know, but we need to feel that we know. So I work with people, and the idea is that we ask questions and we use their body to guide them, whether it's a yes or a no. So they use their body as a dowsing tool, really, to answer
Yeah.
questions. So they get in a state, and I take them into a state where they feel relaxed and safe. That's the most important thing, especially doing this. They feel safe. And then I will check in with the energy in the morning and write some notes down. And interestingly, it usually comes up those things. And it's working on thoughts, patterns, and beliefs, because those all drive us. But we try and think it out, and we need to just release it, because the whole idea is energy. It can never be destroyed. It's just transformed. And if you've had trauma, it gets stuck in your body. So it's from a really basic level. You're just trying to release that energy from your body to create space so more flow can happen in your body. So you ask a question, usually test, is my name? And say, is my name Carly? My energy will move me. Oh, look, so I'm trying to think forward, backwards. It moves forward. And if it's a no, it's backwards. And then we'll either work on emotions, thoughts, and patterns, and they'll release that energy. We have a saying that we say to release it. And then we try and find if it's come from this life, when they've been in their mother's womb, and if they're open to it, past lives. The great thing about this modality, which I love about it, it goes to the root cause quickly, releases it, and then you fill that energy up with something lighter, like joy, happiness, or experience you want to welcome in. And the most amazing thing about this modality is the person you're working with, because you are just a guide, they feel it. Because a lot of the time we go to therapists, which are fantastic. We go to Reiki masters, incredible. But it's given the power back to the individual to know it's all in there. And everyone's like, oh, Carly, thanks. Like, that wasn't me. I held space. Tuned in to help you get to that place. And I worked with a lady recently, and she had a problem with her knees. And then we got to the root cause of it. Sent me a text. She goes, Carly, I can't feel any pain in my knees anymore. And that's just one aspect of it. And do I know how it works? Absolutely not. We turn on, the light. We don't need the main thing. Do you want to feel better? Are you open to loads of different modalities? This isn't the one that's going to change your life. Never believe anyone that says this is going to change your life. It changed their life and they're teaching you. This is not going to change your life. It will help you become more of an empowered being to change your life. And I'm really, really passionate about that it's not one thing to change it, but it's a remarkable modality. It's really helpful. It's all about the person. And I've just had such good feedback. Every session I've held, there's been an incredible shift and transformation from the person, because they empowered themselves and gave them the grace and humility to feel safe and allow me to work with them. So it's a privilege doing the work. It's an absolute privilege.
That's amazing. So my question for you too, number one, is I have friends who literally make every decision based on muscle testing. Like from what sandwich they're going to order at the deli shop to what they're going to purchase. I mean, I could even ask you, your 5 quid Zara shirt, did you muscle test for that? Or you're like, no, that was just a deal. I laugh because you sent me the cutest voice message yesterday, and I'm walking my dogs listening, and I am just like crying on the streets laughing about the 5 quid Zara top. And you're like, my life, this is my beautiful life. Like, you're just so blessed. My question for you is, because the premise of why I wanted to do a podcast in the first place was, and my tagline really says it all, is like finding the magic that ignites your inner essence. And so, when I met you and I thought, oh, I really want you to share your story, the purpose that I really want to bring to my audience is, a lot of people are sitting saying, I don't know how to get to where I want to be based on where I am. So whether you are a school teacher, insert career here or insert job here, or whatever that looks like, which you may want to keep forever. But is there something inside of, the people that are watching this, that they just don't know where to start, or they don't think it's possible, or, maybe it's just not for them to actually find, to follow that vision. So can you share with me and with our audience, where did that ignition happen for you where you were like a teacher and
Yeah.
then you decided like there's something bigger calling me? Can you share the fears of what that looked like for you deciding to make a change? The influence around you, people maybe saying they're poo-pooing you. Can you share what that looked like in terms of the journey from there to where you are now? And I mean, you're soaring like crazy right now. You're an author. Did your book is, being launched on Amazon. You have a beautiful children's book, all
Mm-hmm.
of those things. So how did that unfold for you?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm trying to keep it succinct. So I know I do like a chat. So
Oh, I love it.
basically, it was failing a lot and giving it a go, and not. It's a lot, and this is it's a really good question, because the magic is always there, as we know. It's all around us, and it's just having the courage. So, in all honesty, it was. And I'm not going to call it failure. It was giving it a go, then retreating, a bit like a tortoise head, like coming out from a show, having a look around, like, oh no, it's a bit scary, trying a bit, and then coming back in. So a lot of that, and I do not think that gets enough attention a lot of the time, about how many times I've attempted this. Now, the real jump I took was I consciously left teaching last year. And the reason I did it, because I had a bit of a safety pot, I had some money saved. And then through the ways it is, although my savings went and paid off something. So I was left with no job, nowhere to live, and absolutely no savings. And then I had a choice there. Now, I think the universe does give us nudges all the time. And that was the opportunity. I had to lean on some friends. So I was really lucky that I could go and house sit, pet sit. And I just realized the fear of what I was becoming, it wasn't as big as the fear of having the life that I had.
Wow.
Now that propelled me forward. And it felt like no choice. Of course I did. But I was so depressed and upset and angry and frustrated and felt powerless with no choice, that it was probably that fire of the lower vibrations that propelled me forward. And then I started getting glimpses of trusting again, and I'm getting my power back again. So it was lots of, that's what it was. It was the fear of feeling that I had to stay here. And my friend passed, was in Portugal, a beautiful soul. She passed, and she was the most beautiful, energetic, gorgeous, funny, connected, beautiful soul. And I thought, I've been gifted this life now, and it would be a disservice to her and other people that have not got the opportunity to have all of the opportunities that I've got. And there's tiny things along the way that has propelled me forward. And probably the fact that I was sick and tired of punishing myself. I was sick and tired and seeing, quite frankly, idiots and people with not so much talent and who were absolute plonkers receiving all of this stuff. And I was like, hold on a sec. And I think that's it. You get to that point, so I can't punish myself anymore. I can't keep on repeating this. I don't deserve that. There's mass murderers out there with girlfriends, So
I do not mean to laugh at that. However,
I mean,
I
and I mean it with kindness. There's people that have done incredibly awful things.
yeah.
And also the incredibly awful things that are going on in our world at the moment. And it was a bit like, stop being a martyr, just get on with it. There's horrific atrocities that are occurring in our world at the moment. You've got a body, you have got your health. Yes, you haven't got everything out at the moment. What can you do with that? You've got a voice, you've got a computer, all these things. I've got running water. And when you haven't had that, lived on a boat, didn't have running water or heating for a year, when you are without it, I'm not saying everyone has to go through that, you realize how beautiful this life is, and it is hard to start. So get the books, listen to the podcast, get one person that champions you. If you've got that one person, then they become the voice in your head, and it overrides that horrible, mean, critical voice that you've had for years. Get that one person who sees you, who loves you, even if it's a mirror or just one person in your life. That's all you need. The person sitting at home thinking, I don't know, get that one person who sees you deeply, who cares for you. And then their voice will become that horrible, horrible voice that we sometimes get in our head.
Wow. That's so beautiful. And it's true, because life is so fleeting, right? And even again, like we go through these different challenges. So I honor what you just shared is impeccable, because we can look around and see, like, what are the things that we could be grateful for today. I have a friend of mine who had went through her own situation, feeling the darkness and,
Yeah.
I use the word depression lightly, but going through her own depressive
Mm.
experience. And she had said to me once, she said, Di, you know what I would do during that time is say, I got myself to bed today.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, is that ever humbling? Like,
Mm.
how humbling is that, where it doesn't have to be, we try so hard to do all of the things in this short amount of time that we're awake during the day, that sometimes just getting us through our own day and getting our head on that pillow can be enough,
Mhm.
right? And then it's going,
Mhm.
and I do, in my own journey as well, had been to some pretty dark places. One of the
Mhm.
things that I think that was important for me as I was going through them, and this is humbling too, is to say, I got myself here. How did I get myself in this mess?
Mhm.
Not, I can't believe he's doing this to me, and how can this, and how can outside, but I literally, and it was one of the most pivotal moments of my life.
Mhm.
And I was able to, and I don't even know how I was able to say it at the time that it was happening. And I caught myself saying, I'm like, wow, how did I get myself into this?
Mhm.
But when I'm able to say, how did I get myself into this? Then guess who
Mhm.
gets to get themselves out of it? Not looking for somebody else to get me out of it.
That's so,
And
yes, so
right.
important. Yes.
And so, and the other thing too, that I look at those experiences, because, I've had some similar types of experiences, is my standards of care for myself are different now.
Yes.
So for instance, I'll give it a practical example in something that I had experienced, that I allowed myself to say yes to. In that experience, which was the dark night of the soul for me, I was able to say resilience and self-reliance are now my standards. So I
Mm.
will live a life of self-reliance,
Mhm.
because what I had allowed myself to do is lose my self-reliance. And in that, I did not have my own power.
Yes.
And so that was a huge key for me, and this was, like, way back in 2008, and because of that, I make stronger, more, responsible decisions in my life as a woman, as an adult, to be able to make sure that I'm maintaining that self-reliance, and that's
Mm.
a standard of life for me. Whereas before, it wasn't something that I understood that needed to be important in my life, and so my
Mhm.
decisions created that environment that was not
Mm.
self-reliant. So
Mhm.
can you share, in terms of that, maybe an experience or something where you were able to say, now this has created a standard for me in my life?
Mhm. Thank you for reminding that. And I think it's really important what you just shared there about the responsibility and accountability, and also honoring all the processes you go through till you get there. See, I don't know about you, like, you see these little clips on YouTube and TikTok. And when you're in those moments where you're like, ah! And then it's like, you got yourself here. And we did. And it's just a reminder to everybody at home that we're never in the same place. We've got access to all this technology now, and just really honor yourself in that moment. We are all responsible for everywhere we got, and it's so powerful to get
Mhm.
that. But before that, you're going to go through some other stuff. So you're not doing anything wrong. You'll get there.
Yeah.
Self-reliance, a lot, and really interesting talking about the power. It's, I guess with everything that's happened in the last 7 years, I realized I outsourced my happiness to other people and
Oh,
outsourced who I was to other people. But then, interestingly, good old ego had evidence there to blame them because I didn't take responsibility for it. So I got in quite a cycle. And it's only recently that I made a choice to come to LA and didn't tell a lot of people, and they got a little bit annoyed about it, that I realized actually I was responsible for that decision. And I take full responsibility for that decision. And what I choose is the most important thing, whatever everybody else thinks. So that was a big lesson for me, that I actually made that decision for myself. I've done a lot of things to tick boxes for other people and how they see me, and that was easy. But then also I had that kind of like backdoor saying, that was your fault. So everything that happened in America was a big step for me, making that choice for myself, but being self-reliant, but fully accountable for what happened. And actually on the back of it, a couple of friends felt upset I made that decision, and have chosen, and it's just shown me what conditional love is about, and also how I was treating myself conditionally. So it's been a big lesson for me. The big lesson is taking full responsibility for my choices and unconditional love, and the trip to America really highlighted that. Am I treating myself conditionally with the choices I make? And if I make a choice, it's fully my responsibility. So
wow.
those are the big lessons that I've had of late.
It's brilliant too, because then as well, the word that comes to me when you're sharing the story of you flying to LA and that's how I met you is the confidence that we can have that the decisions that we're making are our decisions. And so when we can own our own decisions, then we're less susceptible to being influenced by other people's views of our decisions based on where they're at.
Absolutely.
Loving where they're at and saying, thank
Yeah.
you for sharing. I appreciate that you like one thing that Aaron Apke said in a beautiful video, and I'm tying this all in, was that in life, we need contrast. Like, literally we need to have contrast. And if we could just have an understanding that everyone, if we could in our own way, this is like powerful, is if we can understand where people are coming from, we don't have to understand or we don't have to agree with where they're coming from, but we could say like, I can understand that that's how you feel. I can understand that that's where you're coming from, especially in this world that we are, quote unquote, in division. Everyone is coming from where they're meant to be coming from. And we don't have to agree with it. We don't have to like spend so much time trying to figure it out. But if we could say, I can understand that that's where you're coming from, like your friends, you could say that to your friends, but it doesn't have to change my decision from where I'm coming from, in my joy, in my passion, in my conviction of flying to LA for something that you knew in your heart without knowing, right? We all flew to this event and, people say, oh, what is that? I said, I have no idea. I will find out when I get there. And now in hindsight, I'm like, now I know why, but not everyone operates the way that maybe you and I do, where we're gonna fly somewhere without the structure or the agenda or even any type of understanding of what it is, but just that knowing. And that's where you and I are very similar. And that's when I saw them like, wow, I just need to know this human. She's like, your light was so big. And I love how you radiate with that curiosity of like, I'm just gonna go do this and I'll figure out why, but there's a reason. So that conviction is really important.
Absolutely. And just listening to what you're saying there, I'm just like, yep, confirmation. And it's really important to surround yourself with people that contrast is fabulous. I think it's really important. And I feel like our family offer that quite a lot of the time. And sometimes when we've been in jobs, but it's also important to have those people around us that do really see us truly.
Yeah.
And I feel for a lot of people out there and your listeners and people that are experiencing challenges at the moment, if they haven't cultivated that self-love inside them and they haven't got that person there they can rely on, it can be really, really lonely and quite overwhelming. And that's really normal. And it's normalizing all those big emotions till we get to this kind of, so, I'm 42 this year. And, I've been started to really dabble when I was 21 and I've had, great experiences and magical things. But it's only probably really now that it's all really settling in. So I want to affirm that as well to a lot of people, that it can be really, like some people we see it's really quick and the transformation is incredible, but we're looking for a sustainable game, aren't we really? Like we really want to ensure within our body that we have that beautiful relationship, because everything's about relationships. So it's cultivating that with yourself. And also, if you do cock up and make mistakes and you have like, I'm fully accountable for this, be kind to yourself. Like we all cock up, we all make mistakes. We all, have done things we regret. And it's leading with that responsing, remember I was talking about. If we can be really, really compassionate to ourselves, then that will naturally come out of us. So if we do cock up, I've got probably about another book about that. But if I can look back without any shame with those choices I made at the moment, because they were the best that I had at the time, and just be really compassionate, and then that just oozes out of you. And also if you're angry and you're short with people or you've had a bad day, own it. That's what I've realized. That's spiritual. Just saying, I'm really sorry. I've been a bit of an, I don't know if I can swear, but
you could do anything you want.
Okay, I'm sorry if I've been an arsehole today. I'm really tired, and giving ourselves the humility as spiritual people that we are love and light, we're allowed to be tired too. We're allowed to be exhausted just because we are open to this ether, and having someone that we can just say, I'm really sorry, I'm tired today. And giving ourselves the humility to do that. And that's where the magic lies as well. Be honoring ourselves, being fully responsible for all our emotions, but feeling all your emotions too. And if you are a bit of an arsehole, just apologize for being a bit of an arsehole. That's spiritual too. Do you know what I mean?
I absolutely agree with you. And it is so true, because what happens was, for me, I'll just share, is that if I find myself just on this path of like trying to get to that 100%, and I did a reel after our conversation last week talking about our humanness and being okay to have a bad day and being okay to feel all the feels, right? And not feeling like, well, I'm not good enough until I'm 100% that person.
Yes.
Like screw that. Just be the human that you are. And then again, I think the biggest thing, and I know for myself, even in relationship to my friends or my partner, I'm fine with accountability. Like I'm fine with, okay, I could have said that a little bit nicer, and then for me to be able to say, I'm like, would you look at that? Could have shown up a lot better in that
Yeah.
moment. And
Yeah.
then it kind of dissolves that feeling that can get pent up if someone just doesn't take accountability. So I
Yeah.
really believe that we're supposed to be imperfect.
Yeah.
And how do you feel too? I wanted to touch on that is, whenever you are on this path and you're growing and you're in all of these different experiences, can you share like what that looks like for you in your experience with influences or masterminds or who you're surrounding yourself with? Like, is there anything that has grounded you through this last, say, 7 years of you deciding to make big changes? You
Mhm.
say, have that person that champions you. Can you share a little bit more about what that looks like in your own life and how you got there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I backpacked around India, I think about 6 or 7 years ago, and I was really on a bit of a cheap eat, pray, love kind of expedition. Didn't quite have the money she did, so just went around and was really seeking at that moment. I had some incredible experiences. I went to a retreat center up in Dharamsala, and it was a 10-day retreat, and all my friends were laughing. I was like, "That's going to be hard for you, Carly." But it was really beautiful because I learned about Buddhism, but it was offered in a way like a tapas. Like, I'm going to offer you all these practices, but I'm not going to force it down your throat. Here's a tapas, the Buddhist tapas. Have a little taste. If it resonates, brilliant. So we learned in the morning, and then it was quiet then it was no talking after that. And it was such a beautiful experience. And then I came out and got drunk and fell in love with a guy who said he met me in a past life. So that, I was getting so that I was like, past life, I was like, what a mentalist. So along with these moments of absolute awakening and understanding, I slipped back into loads of bad habits a lot of the time, excess drinking, partying a lot, again, abandoning myself through seeking approval from others. But I kept on having these little parts. And then I studied a course called the Energy Alignment Method, which was fantastic. It's what the modality I choose to work in. And it was brilliant to be around people, men and women, that allowed me to be vulnerable and help me. So I worked with them. So I trained as a mentor in that and discovered a lot of friends through that were very normal, but were really integrating this way of life. So that was hugely beneficial for me. And a lot of the friends that I'm still in contact with, I met through that. And I just kept on putting myself out there, but it's more to do with the holistic spiritual courses of the people that I resonate with. So I just kept on trying. A lot of podcasts have been exceptionally helpful. Matt Kahn at the beginning of my journey was hugely influential. Carl Cease, both big admiration for him and his journey. Abraham Hicks, massive in my journey as well. Yes. And Michael Singer, read quite a lot of his books as well. And Stephen Bartlett, The Diary of a CEO, which he's a great entrepreneur in the UK, and he interviews.
I love his podcast. Oh my God, I love him. Yes. I've been binge watching The Diary of CEO. Yeah.
But you know what's been really interesting as well, and I say this, some of the most spiritual people I've met at a bus stop or on a train, that I'll be there in a moment, or I'll be coming out of the toilet, and then someone will just say something, and I'm like, it just gets me unexpected. And again, it's a reminder that the old kind of era of, like 70s, 80s, like putting people up on pedestals, the most spiritual people or the most magical people that are in it and show me are the ones that don't have all the accolades or followers. And it's not saying some people are on that platform and are very much needed. What we're doing now, we love it. It's our genius. We enjoy it. But there's been moments where, I've had the most profound chats with people in the library in Brighton, because I was working there because I went to the library, which was Brighton Library in the UK. Honestly, I owe you so much. And just those are the people, those are the parts. And it's like in the day, we're looking for these big things, especially if you've had a big opening and you've had this experience. But can just be watching like the sun reflect off a leaf, or a little blackbird that my mum's got in the garden, or as I said, she was walking through town and a fish fell out a seagull's mouth right in front of me. And it's those moments that
I almost feel like it's important for me for my audience to actually add the audio clip of your voice note yesterday on WhatsApp because just when you had me at the 5 quid Zara, it didn't stop. Then you had the fish falling out of the seagull's mouth. I thought, I just wish they would keep on going. And then I looked at my phone and you were done. I'm like, no, it can't be done.
And honestly, this what happens. My friends joke to me that things seemingly happen around me, and they're like, "Carly, what?" You know the film? What was it? I'm trying to think. This one time at band camp, you know the person with the stories. What was that
Yes.
film?
Is that American Pie?
Yeah. So forget. My friends are always like every time, like, "Carly, what's happened now? This one time at band camp." Because I always come out with these ridiculous stories, so and go on tangents as you're realizing now. I feel very grateful.
As you were sharing the magic of the most spiritual people in your life come in different areas, not just on screen, and you don't have to spend thousands of dollars going to a conference, and you don't have to be part of a big mastermind or reading that person's book that's #1 on everyone's book seems to be #1 on the New York Times bestseller. I don't know how that works. It's a lot of #1s at the same time. It's brilliant. But I will tell you that as you were sharing that story, I remember being at an event in Toronto, and we were waiting for the event to start. It was at this place called the Spoke Club. And I went and had a glass of white wine. I was waiting at the bar. It was like a 4:00, 5:00 event. And I was by myself, and they're like, oh, it's gonna be about 45 minutes. I'm like, I'll just go grab a glass of like rosé or white wine. Everyone was at this like beautiful area. And I went to, to order a glass of white wine. I'm just standing there, and this older woman, she told me she was 92. 92, I'm pretty sure. She says to me, and she never knew me. She didn't know who I was. I didn't know who she was. She was there as well for this event. She was by herself as well. And we're both standing at the bar. And she looks over to me. She goes, darling, your cells always eavesdrop on your thoughts. And I'm like, who are you? She didn't even say my name is, XY. She just said, darling, don't ever forget that your cells eavesdrop on your thoughts. Be careful your thoughts.
And did you look around and she was gone? Who's that?
Right. And I just looked at her and I said, how do I even thank you for that?
Yeah.
And so that was and I mean, this was literally, it was about 2010. It was about 2010 or 2011 in Toronto. And I'll never forget that woman. One sentence.
Yeah.
And so that obviously clearly had an impact on me.
Yeah.
And it cost me a glass of white wine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's where the magic is.
It really, and trusting your intuition. Because I had this thing where when I went to Portugal recently, there was 2 American people sitting down, and they sound like they're having so much fun. They kind of looked over, and then we just exchanged a conversation and we just stayed chatting 5 hours. And it's also, if you get that nudge of your intuition, it doesn't, and you just say, oh, it looks really fun, I'm really excited, and the experience is not exactly how you want it to be.
Yeah.
Don't judge your intuition. That's not your intuition. Because then sometimes can't trust it. Can't trust my intuition. No, can't do it. I went out on that date with the guy, and your intuition is always telling you, but sometimes there's an override. So always trust your intuition. You can feel it. Everyone's like, it's quiet, it's subtle. It's like a gentle nudge. The ego is a bit forthright and a bit more aggressive, like a little kid having a tantrum. But your intuition's never wrong. It's just possibly your expectations of what your situation you want it to be might be misaligned. That's all it is.
It's interesting. And it's funny that you say that. I was watching Marie Forleo. She's one of my all-time favorite women entrepreneurs. I don't know if you follow her. She's
you'll have to.
Oh my gosh, she's so amazing. Marie Forleo. I will send you her info. And Barbara from Shark Tank was on an episode last week on Marie Forleo podcast. And Barbara was sharing the story. I can't remember how to pronounce Barbara's name. That's why I'm not pronouncing it.
Just say it quickly.
And so she was sharing how, whenever your intuition shares things with you and tells you things, like, don't try to look for the explanation. Like, don't try to say, okay, well, give me the notes on it though. No. Your intuition is always right. Well, give me the 3 points why I should trust you right now, intuition, right? So it was important that she said that, and it allowed me to think about, okay, where am I allowing my intuition to come into my life, and where am I questioning my intuition? And how has that served me, right? Because it's always there. It's what we do with it. And you said something really profound, how you don't regret any of the experiences that you've been in your life, and neither do I. There are times where I could look back and say, yes, she was screaming, but I was hiding her voice and I was like lowering her voice. And that's
Yeah.
where these different decisions came. So there's no regret.
Mm-hmm.
But it is interesting to be able to say, okay, so how can I create a more vibrant life moving forward, having a better relationship with my intuition? Because
Mm-hmm.
really, it's like you said too earlier, everything is in relation to outside of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's really important that we are able to honor that. And maybe we start with muscle testing. Like there's so many tools out there on how we can kind of play with
Mm-hmm.
how to get a better relationship to our inner essence.
And you said the word play there, which is so interesting. I'm reading The Artist's Way, and creativity is all play. It's
Yes.
our little kids. We're talking about recovered artists. It's all those times when we're kids, and play is so important. And understanding, and obviously, if you're going through a really traumatic event or abusive partner, or you've just lost someone, or all the big events in life, play is not going to, you've got to go through the process. I'm talking if you're kind of in the space at the moment where you're like, oh, I'm not sure, play. And we'd lost that as adults. That's why I love working with kids and being around kids. Play is so important, and having fun and like realizing it's ridiculous. Like life, like a lot of things like we experience are utterly ridiculous. And when we take the ego and the expectation out of it, just look back and like, it's so ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And when you can take, it's like even like dates and meeting people or being rude, like even like if you break that down, like the whole idea for the mechanics of it's utterly ridiculous. But with the right person, it can be fun and playful and enjoyable.
Absolutely.
But it's really, it's like you like kissing. Like if you think about the mechanics of it, it's ridiculous, but really enjoyable with the right people. But
absolutely. It's ridiculous. You can call that muscle testing. Maybe you could say kissing is a form of muscle testing. Anything works. We can make anything.
I was going to say that would be. I'd be well up for that. But obviously, I have to pick my clients very specific.
Very, very specific.
That's it.
I want to go back to kids because I want you to share one thing that you shared with me during one of our intermissions in LA when we were at the event. Was you were telling me about the story of the children's book that you are writing with a girl named Ruth. I would love if you can share a little bit about that. What that looks like and what brought you to want to create this story. And I don't know all of the story, but I was so touched by what you had briefly shared with me.
Yeah, so I have been a teacher and I've always worked with kids since I was 14, and I'm a big kid myself, like love playing, having fun. And I wrote this book actually originally about a lady called Poppy Branch. It started at her funeral, ended when her mum found out she was pregnant, and it was slightly autobiographical. And I was like, this is amazing. Not me writing it. I was like, this is brilliant. And then I found an editor, got a hunch, intuition to go to a writer's retreat, a free day in the library. And I spoke to him and he's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm a writer. I claimed it. Yes. And he said, what are you doing? I've written a book and it's brilliant. And he looked like a bit shocked. He's like, what? He goes, writers don't usually say that. Well, I was like, it's not about me. It's about the book. And then started working with him. Realized the book was this one chapter I wrote about this little girl's diary that she'd written about her teacher. And then she just came to life. So Ruth is a little girl who's about 10, who's just writing about her experiences of school, about her mum and dad. And then she has this supply teacher, this support teacher that comes in that just changes her world. And it's just the understanding, the innocent, just the gorgeousness of young kids and the view of the world that's so beautiful, but also the complexities that they face as well with friendships. And she's just become more alive. I've just written a chapter now about one of the chapters now that her mum's got a friend who's black, and she doesn't understand. She looks at her skin. This is a 10-year girl, young girl's perspective. She's like, Mum, she's not black. And she goes, you must call her black. And she gets really confused because she loves this woman called Natalie, but the actual tone of her skin is brown and her skin's peach. And her mum says, you should never say that. That's a terrible thing to say. And it's really investigating the innocence of children's minds and how they see it as it is. And then she gets really confused by it all. So she's just portraying the world, the complex world, in a really beautiful, lovely way. And also the challenges of being a parent, but also the impact of what a teacher, a loving, caring, nurturing, kind teacher, the impact they have on kids' lives, because they get paid terrible money. Yes. They are working so hard and it's relentless. And I just wanted to have a platform for the kids to have a voice, but also really champion teachers, really. So the books come through me. It's not mine. This little character is coming through me. She's just adorable.
And when is that going to be available for us to?
We're working on it at the moment with my editor. We're hoping to finish by the end of September editing, and then we'll start pitching to publishers. My editor said it takes about 18 months, but who knows who you might meet. You never know who you're going to meet, but I'm just going to be pitching it to everyone and using my intuition to guide me.
I love it. That's so amazing. And it's interesting that you say that about teachers. So I will never forget my first teacher in kindergarten, Mrs. Mulligan. Mrs. Mulligan changed my life. And then, and I also, that's like the champion teacher. And then the contrast, because everything in life is contrast. The contrast is that I had, and I'm not going to mention his name, but I had a teacher in grade 8. So I went from being straight A student. I was, in the enrichment group, like very, very, I loved school. I just loved it. I just couldn't wait to go to school. And then in grade 8, I went from the contrast of the straight A, kind of teacher's pet, kind of, experience, which was so fun, so supported, so safe. And then in grade 8, I was brought into my class on my own after a recess, and my teacher said, "You are a bad seed and no one should hang out with you."
Oh my God, that's awful.
And I just remember, I was like, well, that doesn't add up. Like, that doesn't add up to all these. And so it's very interesting. And I hear that. I probably need some, extra therapy that I maybe should look into. I kid you. But I look at that and how did that ever impact me to be told that I should not have friends? And from a place from like and so it's very interesting. And I say that because we need to create strong children so that they are not defining their identity based on outside of them.
Absolutely.
Right? Because I could look at the decisions that I made moving forward, that's a whole other podcast, that the decisions that I made in my schooling, in my like courses and all of that right after that were completely affected by the fact that I started to believe that I was not good enough. And it took me having that self-awareness to realize like that is not my identity. However, so that's the importance of teachers, solid teachers. So, Mrs. Mulligan has changed my life. And there's so many beautiful stories for her. And I'll tap into that whenever I have those experiences of like, why would I be told I was a bad seed for whatever that reason was? So it's very interesting. So the power of teaching, the power of the teacher's impact on children is profound, right? So
definitely. It breaks my heart, like as a, especially as a person that's worked with kids for a long time, and how kids are so susceptible to the opinions, especially, what we grew up in, you respect your elders and listen to what they're saying. And a lot of kids can feel that discordant between them and the teacher, but they haven't got the capacity to really articulate it or be heard. And that just breaks my heart that little you heard. That's an awful thing to say. That is terrible.
And then I have to realize too that every day I have to say, okay, it's not just me, because every day he'd walk into class and he would call all the students asinine idiots. So I have to remember that.
It wasn't but I mean, it's as a little child,
grade 8.
What is that? And what's grade 8? Because we have it slightly different in the UK. What's grade 8?
I was probably around 12 years old.
Oh God, you're cusp of all the hormones coming in as well. And you're learning about your identity, who you are. You're questioning it. That's awful.
Let's just say my high school days were quite colorful after that. No regrets. I would love to ask you a question as we close out, because we can talk all day, every day. I would love, you've worked with children, you are on this path, you're going to be 42. I like to ask my guests just a random question at the end. It's always a little bit different.
Love it.
But if you were to tell your 12-year-old self from where you are right now, what would be advice or like some words of advice that you would give her based on where you are now, 42, to your 12-year-old self that you think would have been helpful for you?
Yeah, I would. Just trying to think. This is a thinky one.
I put you on the spot. I know
you did, and I like that. I'm just trying to think what like the biggest thing that she would like to hear at the moment, and it would be breathe. It would be more like teaching her something about how to regulate her body, because she was so unregulated. Wow. So it would be more like teaching her how to breathe. It sounds so simple, but it's just like, come with me for a little bit. Honestly, I promise you, if I teach you how to breathe deeply, it's going to regulate your body and you're going to feel a bit better. That's what I'd teach her, because I'm realizing the power of breath these days. Like, you can just be that, you know, everything we have, and it's because we don't breathe properly. And I tell her that she's amazing, that she's really amazing. And and it's going to be okay, but just learn how to breathe. It'd be more practical, which is not usually like me. I'm usually like talking in metaphors, but yeah, breathe.
It's amazing because every time you hear the word breathe, I start to be like, you're right, you're reminding me to breathe. And I think that it is so important. Breath can change everything in your day.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I think that's beautiful.
So simple.
I would love for you to share, where can we find you? I'll actually definitely put you in the show notes, your link. And where can we find you? What do you have exciting that's coming up? Is there anything that you want to offer the guests? And again, everything will be put in my description and show notes. Where can we find the lovely Carly?
Yes. So I am just launching all of my social media at the moment. So I will send you, it's On the Brink Coach. UK.com. I will send all of this to you, and on Facebook and LinkedIn. So I will send you all the details that you've got there. Also, I'd love to work with any clients out there who are feeling a creative kind of corporate women, or women that seemingly have it all, that are in a position they're like, I just want to connect to myself. Love to work with them. And I'll give you all my details, which you can add there, and they can just send me a DM. And yeah, it's just, it's a privilege to do the work. And I'd love to work with my American sisters and Canadian sisters to get a bit more sparkle back in their lives. So I'll give you all my details, which can go below, and they can find me on those socials.
I love it. I'm so grateful to chat with you. This is obviously the first of many, and honored and just excited. And so, as you all heard, for Carly, and I actually have her as Clara on my WhatsApp. That's a whole other story. The new planet, her name is actually Clara. But you could find Carly. I'll send everything in the show notes. And just thank you to everyone who had an opportunity to be here with us, and looking forward to supporting you every step of the way. And I will definitely let my audience know when your book is out. Brilliant. And love you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Hey friends, thank you again for following and tuning in to the Lucy Smiles Living Room podcast. It really does truly support my mission to help inspire you through our beautiful guests that I also want to thank, who have come on to share their beautiful stories of transformation. If you want to connect with me privately, you can actually go right to my website, lucysmiles.com. Feel free to send to me a personal email. You can also catch my newsletter by subscribing, which also includes my weekly intuitive messages. If you're on social media, you can follow me with my handle, I am Lucy Smiles. And if this was inspiring to you and something helped support you on whatever the journey is that you are going through, please feel free to review, write a comment, and most importantly, if you can subscribe and share this episode and all our other episodes, that would be amazing. My dream and my mission is to truly help you to follow the magic that ignites your inner essence. And so until next time, we will catch you soon. I hope to catch you on the next episode.